is moving fast. Let's break it down. Welcome to AI Assembled, where we curate the biggest AI stories and unpack what they mean to you. I'm Chris Doelle, bringing you the latest in AI so you can stay ahead of the curve. Let's dive in.
Think of this episode as your cheat sheet to the AI stories that are making the biggest waves right now.
Absolutely. And the world of AI, as you said, it never slows down. Mm-hmm. It's really exciting, seeing all these different pieces start to come together. So we're going to unpack some pretty significant leaps in AI's ability to reason, a really, really inspiring story about how AI is being used in medicine, the essential groundworks that's being laid for future AI development, and the rise of AI that can understand and interact with the world in lots of different ways. So yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so let's start with something that feels like a genuine game changer in AI itself. Google DeepMind's Gemini 2.5 Pro. Now, you see these headlines about it having built-in thinking capabilities, and it almost sounds like we're stepping into like a whole new, era of AI, right? But looking at the stuff you sent over, what does this actually mean? Like, how does this AI work compared to what we've seen before?
Well, what's particularly interesting here is that it seems to go beyond the kind of AI that we're used to. AI that's really good at spotting patterns in mountains of data, like predicting what the next word in a sentence is going to be, or identifying what objects are in a picture.
Yeah.
This Gemini 2.5 Pro, it's designed to engage in a much more sophisticated kind of processing.
Oh, okay.
So instead of just like connecting the dots based on what it's seen before, it can analyze information, in a deeper way. It can draw logical conclusions, and then it can make much more informed decisions. Mm-hmm. It's really aiming for a deeper level of understanding, so that it can handle more complex problems.
So it's not just pattern recognition, like you said. It's actually trying to do something closer to actual reasoning.
Yeah.
How do they even do that? What's different about it that lets it do that?
From what I've seen, it looks like there are a few things going on. First, the base model itself, the core neural network that's been improved a lot.
Oh.
There are also some pretty clever innovations in how these neural networks are designed so they can process information in a more complex way, but also more efficiently. And then of course the amount of data it was trained on and how diverse that data is, that plays a huge role, right? It gives it a much broader understanding of how things work in the world.
Makes sense, yeah.
And lastly, the techniques they've used to fine-tune the model after the initial training, those have also gotten a lot more sophisticated. So
it's really like a complete, like across-the-board improvement, it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not just one thing. It's the whole development process that's been advanced.
And from what I've read, these changes are actually like showing some pretty impressive results.
Right.
I saw some really good numbers about how it performs on benchmarks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One result that really jumps out is how it did on this humanities last exam benchmark. It scored 18.8%, which from what I've seen is a new record for models that don't use any external tools to help them answer.
That's incredible.
And this benchmark, it's specifically designed to test really advanced reasoning abilities.
Wow.
And what's even more interesting is that it outperformed other top models, like ones from OpenAI, Grok, Claude, and DeepSeek, across a whole range of tests. So that really suggests that this model represents a significant step forward in AI's overall capabilities.
Yeah, it's a pretty clear sign that things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Now let's totally switch gears and talk about how AI is moving beyond just, these impressive technical achievements and actually starting to make a real difference in people's lives. The story of Joseph Coates, which you included in your research, I mean, that's a really powerful example of this.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little more about how AI was involved in his story?
Yeah, I mean, this is where things get really compelling, because it shows how AI can go from being this theoretical possibility to having a direct positive impact on someone who's facing a really, really tough situation. So Joseph Coates, he had basically run out of options in terms of conventional treatment, and his prognosis was not good.
Oh, wow.
But AI was actually key in finding new ways to use existing drugs, something we call drug repurposing.
Drug repurposing. So it's like finding a second life, a whole different purpose for a medication that's already out there.
Exactly. Yeah. You see, a lot of drugs already have really well understood safety profiles.
Yeah.
They've already been through all this rigorous testing for their original purpose.
Yeah.
So if AI algorithms can sift through all this massive amount of biological and pharmacological data and find that a drug that's used for one thing might also work for something completely different, well, that can speed up the discovery of new treatments dramatically.
Yeah.
And this is especially important for rare diseases or really complex conditions where we're developing brand new drugs from scratch can take, decades and cost billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
It turns out that machine learning is actually really, really good at digging through all this data and finding these hidden connections that nobody would have expected.
So AI is actually offering a lifeline when traditional medicine has kind of hit a wall. I mean, that really drives home the transformative potential of this technology. Now let's shift gears again and talk about the infrastructure that underpins all this incredible AI capability. We've seen some pretty interesting things happening with the UK government, as you pointed out. What's the main takeaway there?
Well, if you think about what we were just talking about, like Gemini and its enhanced reasoning power, it's important to remember that these models need an incredible amount of computational power to run.
Right. Yeah.
And that power comes from these huge data centers. And the UK government, as you mentioned, they've announced reforms to try to speed up the development of this AI infrastructure. And one of the key things they're doing is they're trying to streamline the process of actually building these new data centers.
Yeah, makes sense. Because you can have the most amazing AI algorithms in the world, but they need the physical hardware to run on, right? So what else is the UK doing in this area?
Well, they're also taking a kind of bigger picture approach to creating an environment where AI can flourish. One really big initiative is that they're creating a technology corridor that connects the universities of Oxford and Cambridge. Yeah, so the idea is to build something like a European version of Silicon Valley, a hub where innovation and collaboration can really take off.
Yeah.
And this involves not just the digital infrastructure, but also things like improving transportation links and building new housing to support the people who'll be working in this new tech sector.
So it's a pretty comprehensive strategy, it sounds like. It's more than just servers and networks. And I remember reading about a pretty big chunk of money being allocated to this, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's the £3.25 billion transformation fund.
Right.
And this fund is specifically designed to help public services adopt digital technologies and AI. The goal is to leverage these AI-powered tools to make government operations more efficient and to implement advanced technology in a whole range of public sectors, including areas like probation services.
Well,
it's a really significant commitment from the government to really integrating AI into society, into the fabric of how things work.
Yeah, it definitely looks like there's this growing global understanding that having strong AI infrastructure is strategically important.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to another really fascinating area, this rise of multimodal AI. Alibaba Cloud recently announced their Qwen 2.5 Omni 7B model. And for those of us who don't spend all their time in the AI world, what does multimodal actually mean, and what makes this particular model so interesting?
Okay, so multimodal AI basically refers to systems that can process and understand multiple types of data all at the same time. So instead of just being limited to text, for example, these systems can also take in images, audio, video, and the really important part is they can actually grasp how these different forms of information relate to each other.
Okay, yeah.
And what makes Qwen 2.5 Omni 7B stand out, especially considering that it's relatively small in terms of the number of parameters it uses, is that it can handle this really comprehensive multimodal perception. So it can take in text, images, audio, and videos as input, and then generate responses in real time, not just as text, but also as natural sounding speech.
Wow. So it's not just processing one type of data at a time. It's actually understanding the world more like we do through multiple senses.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it can do this with a relatively small number of parameters, that's a big deal, because it means that this model is much more practical for running on everyday devices like smartphones and laptops.
Okay.
So this opens up all these possibilities for developing AI agents that are more agile, more cost effective, and that can operate directly on these devices without having to rely on the cloud all the time.
So that unlocks a ton of potential for real world applications. Can you give us some concrete examples of what this kind of AI could actually do?
Sure, yeah. Imagine AI assistants that can really understand their environment. So for someone who's visually impaired, this could provide real-time audio descriptions of what their phone's camera is seeing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or imagine you're cooking something, something complicated, and you're watching a video. Well, this AI could give you step-by-step guidance, like text instructions on the video, and even spoken explanations.
Wow.
The possibilities for creating AI assistants that are more intuitive and helpful, I mean, they're endless.
Yeah.
And it's also worth mentioning that Alibaba Cloud has made this model open source, which means they've made it freely available to developers and researchers on platforms like Hugging Face and GitHub, so it can be used to create even more innovative applications.
Yeah, that's a big step in making advanced AI more accessible to everyone. Now, let's talk about something a bit more behind the scenes, a development from Google that involves the Android operating system. It seems they're changing how they approach its development in a pretty fundamental way. What's the main change here?
Okay, so this change is going to mostly affect developers and people who really follow the inner workings of Android.
Right.
Google's announced that all future development of the Android OS is going to be done privately.
Privately?
Yeah. This is different from how they used to do it, where they shared some of the development work publicly in real time through the Android Open Source Project, or AOSP Garrett.
Okay. So why are they making this change? Why take development behind closed doors?
Well, their goal is to make the whole process of developing Android smoother and more efficient. Mm-hmm. See, they've been maintaining two separate development streams: the public AOSP branch and their own internal development branch. And this double system, it can lead to problems when they have to merge changes between the two. It can cause delays and conflicts and things like that.
Right.
So by doing all the development in their internal branch, they're hoping to make things faster and more agile.
So does this mean that Android is going to become closed source at some point in the future?
No, that's really important to understand. Google has been very clear that they're still committed to releasing the source code to AOSP after each major Android release.
Okay.
So when the next big version of Android comes out, the complete source code will still be made public. The difference is in the timing and the frequency of when they make specific code changes public. Some components that used to be developed in the open will now be developed internally, and the code for those changes will only be released when a new version branch is published.
Okay. So what are the expected consequences of this change? Like, who's going to be most affected by this new strategy?
Well, for most people who use Android, I don't think there's going to be much of an impact at all. They probably won't even notice any changes.
Right.
And the same goes for most app developers and even platform developers who create custom Android distributions, because they usually work with the stable release versions of Android rather than the very latest, potentially unstable code from AOSP. So
it sounds like there's not going to be a big impact on the day-to-day experience for most people.
Right.
But I imagine there are some groups who will feel this change more strongly.
Yeah, definitely. External developers who actually contribute code to AOSP, they'll probably find it more difficult. They'll have less visibility into what Google is doing in real time, which could make it harder to contribute and collaborate. And also people like journalists and analysts and even some developers who rely on looking at the AOSP code to try to figure out what Google is planning for the future, like new features or even new hardware. They're going to have less insight now.
So it's kind of a trade-off, isn't it? I mean, Google wants to be more efficient internally, but it might come at the cost of some transparency for the broader Android development community.
Well, this has been a really, really fascinating look at some of the biggest developments in AI right now. From the breakthroughs in AI reasoning and its incredible potential to literally save lives in healthcare, to the crucial infrastructure being built and the amazing capabilities of multimodal AI, It's clear that this field is just moving at an unbelievable speed. And even the changes in how something as fundamental as Android is developed, that just shows how dynamic this landscape really is. These are just a few of the stories that are shaping the world of AI right now.
Absolutely. The pace of innovation is it's remarkable. And it's so important to keep track of these developments because they're going to continue to shape our future, not just in technology, but in every aspect of our lives. It really makes you think not just about the technical achievements, but about the wider implications for how we interact with technology, with the world, with each other.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground in our conversation today. We hope this overview has given you a good understanding of where AI stands right now. And now I'll hand you back to Chris to close out AI Assembled.
That's it for this episode of AI Assembled, but AI doesn't slow down and neither do we. If you found this insightful, follow the show, stay connected. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, keep exploring AI, and keep it real.
Join the Business Success Academy at freshmediaworks.com to connect with like-minded professionals, access essential resources, and stay ahead with the latest strategies for business growth. Visit freshmediaworks.com and click on the Business Success Academy logo to take your next step towards success today.